The mining belt near the star Corvus had never seen so much metal die in 1 hour. Fire bloomed silently in the dark as 3 alien raider ships broke apart under a storm of iron slugs. There was no roar, no explosion sound, because sound does not travel in space. Only light, only the slow spinning wreckage tumbling outward like broken toys thrown by a giant hand. On board the ISV Dauntless, Fleet Commander Daniel Reyes watched the display without expression. Numbers scrolled beside each wreck. Enemy hull breached. Enemy reactor offline. Enemy crew status unknown. He had seen this scene many times before, yet it never stopped feeling strange to him. Humanity had only been part of galactic society for 11 years, and already their railguns were the most feared weapons among the stars. The railgun did not use plasma or lasers like most alien ships. It used raw metal, pushed to unbelievable speed by magnetic force, hitting like a falling mountain. No shield built by the older species could fully stop it. That simple fact had turned humanity, once a small and unknown race, into something every other species now watched carefully. Reyes turned from the screen. "Report," he said. His weapons officer, a quiet man named Victor Solis, answered without looking up. 3 raiders destroyed. No survivors detected. Our ship took no damage. "Good," Reyes said, though the word felt hollow. It was always good, and it was never enough. The raiders belonged to no major power. They were scavengers, drawn to the mining belt because it sat near the edge of conquered territory, an old alliance of alien species that had kept peace among themselves for 300 years. Peace, but a strange kind of peace. A peace built on rules nobody had ever written down, rules about how much force was allowed, how many ships could die, how far a war could go before it had to stop. Humanity had broken those unwritten rules simply by existing. Later that day, a transmission arrived from the Conquered Council, the ruling body of the Alliance. Reyes took the call alone in his private quarters, the stars sliding silently past his window. The face that appeared was Veyron, a species with pale blue skin and calm, careful eyes that rarely blinked. Her name was Solin, ambassador to the Council, and she had spoken with Reyes many times before. "Commander Reyes," she said, her voice smooth and formal. "The Council wishes to discuss your railgun program again." "There is nothing new to discuss," Reyes said. "We defended a mining post from raiders. That is all." "You destroyed 3 ships in under 4 minutes," Solin said. "No survivors, no warning shots, no attempt at negotiation." "They fired first," Reyes said simply. Solin was quiet for a moment. "The Council does not doubt your right to defend yourselves. What concerns them is the speed of your growth. Your railguns did not exist 15 years ago. Now they outmatch weapons our engineers have refined for centuries. The Council fears where this path leads." Reyes leaned back in his chair. He liked Solin in the strange way one respects an opponent who never lies. She was not trying to trick him. She truly believed what she said. "You want us to slow down," he said. "We want balance," Solin said. "War among the old species has rules, Commander. Not because we are gentle, but because unlimited war destroys everyone, even the winner. Humanity has not yet learned to fear that kind of destruction. We hope you never do." The call ended soon after, but her words stayed in Reyes's mind long after the screen went dark. He walked the halls of the Dauntless that night unable to sleep, passing young crew members who saluted him with tired eyes. Many of them were barely older than the fleet itself, born into a species suddenly thrown onto the galactic stage, learning the rules of war between the stars one battle at a time. Reyes stopped by an observation window and looked out at the mining belt they had just defended. Somewhere out there, unseen, larger threats were gathering. He had read the intelligence reports. A species called the Draask, aggressive and expansionist, had been testing the borders of smaller conquered worlds for months, probing for weakness the way a wolf circles a wounded animal. The conquered worried about humanity's railguns. Ray's worried about something else entirely. He worried that the galaxy's old rules, the careful balance Solon spoke of, were not peace at all. They were simply a slower kind of war, one where the strong picked their moments and the weak learned to survive by staying quiet. Humanity did not have the luxury of staying quiet. They were too new, too unknown, and too far from home to hide behind ancient traditions they had no part in shaping. Ray's pressed his hand against the cool glass of the window and thought about Solon's warning. "Restrain your weapons," she had said. But restraint had never stopped an enemy who wanted to conquer, only delayed it. Something was coming. He could feel it in the quiet tension of every diplomatic call, every warning message from the Council, every unanswered question about the Draask's growing fleet near human space. The railguns had made humanity feared, but feared was not the same as safe. Rays did not know it yet, but somewhere back on Earth, in a research facility buried deep beneath a mountain, a scientist named Rosa Ibarra was already working on something that would make the railgun look like a child's toy. Something that would not just win battles. Something that would end the very idea of war itself. Nobody on Halden Colony expected the sky to turn red that morning. The colony sat on a quiet farming world near the edge of human territory, a place known more for its wheat fields than its defenses. Families lived in small domed towns connected by long roads, growing food for ships passing through the sector. It was the kind of place people moved to when they wanted to forget about war entirely. That illusion ended the moment the Draask fleet dropped out of warp above the planet. There was no warning shot, no message, no attempt to talk. Just streaks of fire falling from orbit, striking the outer farms first, then moving toward the town center. Colony defense forces, small and lightly armed, scrambled ships that were never meant for real battle. They had railguns, yes, standard issue for any human vessel, but only a handful of ships against dozens of Draask warships was never going to be a fair fight. Fleet Commander Daniel Reyes watched the battle unfold from hours away, receiving updates through emergency channels as fast as they could reach him. Every report made his stomach tighten further. "They're punching through," said Solis, standing beside him at the command station. "Our railguns are hitting hard, sir. Look at this." The screen showed wreckage. A lot of it. For every human ship lost, at least 2 Draask ships had been destroyed or crippled. The railgun's raw power was proving itself again, tearing through enemy shields that had never faced anything like it before. But numbers did not matter when the enemy had more ships to spare. By the time Reyes' reinforcement fleet arrived, Halden Colony had already fallen. The Draask had not stayed to occupy it. They struck fast, destroyed what defenses they found, and left behind a message broadcast on open channels for every human ship to hear. "Humanity is young," the message said, spoken in a rough mechanical translation. "Your weapons are strong, but your numbers are small and your resolve is untested. This world was a lesson. Do not mistake one good weapon for true strength." Ray stood in silence on the bridge as the message repeated. Around him, officers stared at the wreckage below, at homes turned to broken shells, at survivors being pulled from rubble by rescue teams. The Draask had not come to conquer Halden. They had come to send a message, and they had chosen the cheapest, cruelest way to send it. That night back on Earth, Ray sat in a private meeting room with 2 other people. Fleet Admiral Grace Whitfield, the highest-ranking officer in Earth's defense forces, and a woman he had never met before, Dr. Rosa Ibarra, head of a research division Reyes had only heard whispered about in classified briefings. "You saw the numbers from Halden," Whitfield said, sliding a data pad across the table. 211 confirmed dead, over 1,000 missing. Our railguns won every individual engagement and we still lost the colony. "The Draask won't stop there," Reyes said. "This was a test. They wanted to see how we'd respond." "And how do we respond?" Whitfield asked. "More railguns, bigger ships. We can't outbuild every species in this galaxy, Commander. Some of them have had 1,000 years head start. Ibera spoke for the first time since the meeting began. Her voice was calm, almost too calm for the weight of what she said next. There's another way, one that doesn't depend on outbuilding anyone. Reyes turned to her. I'm listening. For the past 6 years, Ibera said, my division has been working on something outside conventional weapons research. Not bigger guns, not stronger shields, something built around a different question entirely. Which is, Reyes asked. What if instead of destroying an enemy fleet, Ibera said, we simply made it impossible for them to fight at all? The room went quiet. Explain, Whitfield said. Ibera activated a small holographic display above the table, showing a diagram of a device unlike anything Reyes had seen before. It looked almost too simple, a compact core surrounded by strange curved plating. It uses controlled gravitational collapse on a micro scale, Ibera said. Deployed correctly, it disables shields, weapons, and engines across an entire enemy formation at once. No explosions, no debris. The ships simply go dark and drift, completely unable to fight back. That sounds impossible, Reyes said. It isn't, Ibera said. We tested a small version 3 months ago on an unmanned target drone. It worked exactly as predicted. Reyes stared at the diagram, his mind racing. A weapon that did not kill outright, but stripped an enemy of the ability to fight entirely. It sounded almost merciful compared to the horror at Halden, and yet something about it made the hair on his arm stand up. What do you call it? He asked quietly. Ibera hesitated only a moment before answering. We call it the Silence. Whitfield leaned back in her chair, studying both of them. If this works the way you say, Doctor, it could change everything. It could stop the Draask without another Halden ever happening again. Or, Reyes said slowly, it could make us the very thing the Conquered has been afraid of all along. Nobody answered him. Outside the window, Earth turned peacefully in the dark, unaware that the decision being made in that small room would soon reach every corner of the galaxy. Deep beneath a mountain range in a place that did not appear on any public map, a facility hummed quietly with the sound of machines that had no name yet in any language spoken outside its walls. Dr. Rosa Ibera walked through the main testing chamber the way other people walk through their own homes. She had spent 6 years of her life here, longer than she had spent anywhere else since finishing her doctorate. The walls were lined with monitors showing data streams nobody outside this project was allowed to see. Fleet Commander Daniel Reyes followed a step behind her, his eyes moving over every strange piece of equipment they passed. He had clearance for almost everything in the fleet, yet this place made him feel like an outsider. You said this started 6 years ago, Reyes said. Why keep it secret from Fleet Command until now? Because if word had gotten out too early, Ibera said, the Conquered would have shut it down before we finished a single working model. They already think our railguns are excessive. Imagine their reaction to this. She stopped in front of a large sealed door and pressed her palm against a scanner. It slid open slowly, revealing a chamber where a single device sat suspended inside a containment ring, glowing faintly with a soft blue light. This is the 3rd generation model, Ibera said. Smaller than the first 2, more stable and far more powerful. Reyes stepped closer, studying the device. It looked almost peaceful, nothing like the massive railgun barrels he was used to seeing on the Dauntless. Walk me through how it actually works, he said, in terms I can understand. Ibera nodded and began explaining, choosing her words carefully. Every ship depends on stable systems to function. Shields need power flow. Engines need fuel ignition. Weapons need targeting calculations. All of that depends on the normal behavior of space and time around the ship. And the Silence changes that behavior, Reyes said. Exactly, Ibera said. When deployed, it creates a small, controlled collapse in local spacetime. Nothing violent, nothing explosive. But for a short distance around the point of collapse, all electronic systems stop functioning correctly. Shields fail. Weapons lock up. Engines shut down. It doesn't destroy the ship's hull. It simply removes its ability to fight or move. Reyes crossed his arms. So the crew survives. In most cases, yes, Ibera said. That's actually the point. A destroyed fleet creates martyrs and revenge. A disabled fleet drifting helplessly creates something far more powerful. Fear without bloodshed, a lesson without a funeral. Reyes was quiet for a long moment, staring at the glowing device. You make it sound almost gentle. It isn't gentle, Ibera said, her voice suddenly sharper. Don't mistake efficiency for kindness, Commander. Imagine being on one of those ships. Your weapons are dead. Your engines are dead. Your shields are dead. You are floating in the dark, completely at the mercy of whoever did this to you. There is nothing gentle about that kind of helplessness. Reyes thought back to Solin's warning weeks earlier about the old rules of war among conquered species, rules built to keep destruction within limits everyone could survive. This weapon did not follow any of those rules. It did not care about honor or tradition or fair combat. It simply ended the fight before it truly began. Does the Council know this exists? Reyes asked. Not yet, Ibera said, but secrets like this rarely stay buried forever. She was right, though neither of them knew it yet. 3 days later, a junior technician within Ibera's own research division, frightened by what he had seen and unsure who else to trust, sent an encrypted message to a contact within the conquered diplomatic network. The message was simple, only a handful of lines, but its contents were enough to shake the entire council. Ambassador Solin received the message during a private evening meal, her aide delivering it with visible unease. She read it twice before setting down her utensils entirely. Humanity was developing a weapon capable of disabling entire fleets without direct combat. A weapon built around forces the conquered itself had chosen never to weaponize, out of fear of what such power could unleash if misused. Solin requested an emergency session with the Council the following morning. She stood before representatives of a dozen species, her voice steady despite the storm of thoughts behind her calm expression. For 300 years, she said, our alliance has survived because every species agreed to limits. Weapons that could end a war too quickly, too completely, were forbidden, not because we lacked the knowledge to build them, but because we understood the danger of removing all resistance from an enemy. War without struggle breeds absolute power. Absolute power breeds tyranny. A representative from a reptilian species called the Korvath spoke up. You believe humanity intends to conquer us with this weapon. I do not know their intentions, Solin admitted. That is precisely what frightens me. We barely understand this species. Their history is short. Their ambitions are unclear, and now they may hold power greater than any of us. Back on Earth, unaware that his private meeting with Ibera had already reached the ears of the conquered council, Reyes stood once again before the glowing device in its containment ring. He thought about Halden Colony, about the families lost simply to prove a point. He thought about Solin's warnings, about balance and restraint, and the fragile peace built on limits nobody dared cross. If we use this, Reyes said quietly, more to himself than to Ibera, we're not just building a weapon. We're stepping outside every rule this galaxy has followed for centuries. Ibera studied him carefully. Would you rather stay inside those rules, Commander? Rules written by species who never once considered what it feels like to lose a colony like Halden. Reyes did not answer right away. Outside the containment chamber, the device continued its soft, steady glow, patient and silent, waiting for the moment it would be needed. That moment was coming faster than either of them expected. 300 Draask warships dropped out of warp at the edge of the solar system, and for the first time in human history, Earth itself stood directly in the path of an invasion fleet. The Draask had grown bold after Halden. Their scouts reported that humanity still relied mainly on railguns, powerful but predictable weapons the Draask believed they could overcome through sheer numbers. Their commanders saw an opportunity too tempting to ignore: strike the human homeworld directly, break their spirit in one massive blow, and claim the entire sector before the conquered could react. What the Draask did not know was that humanity had spent the past several weeks quietly preparing something far beyond railguns. Fleet Commander Daniel Reyes stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, now serving as flagship for the largest defense fleet Earth had ever assembled. Around him, officers moved with quiet urgency, checking systems, confirming positions, watching the enemy fleet grow larger on their screens with every passing minute. Enemy fleet still holding formation, Solis reported. No sign of slowing down. They're coming straight for the inner system. Reyes studied the tactical display. 300 ships against Earth's combined defense fleet of just under 200. On paper, it looked like a fight humanity could not win through conventional means alone. But this would not be a conventional battle. "Status on the silence array?" Reyes asked. A voice answered through his calm despite the tension in the room. It was Ibarra, stationed at a secure command post overseeing the deployment personally. "All 12 units are charged and synchronized, Commander. Once triggered, effective radius will cover the Draask fleet's current formation completely." Reyes exhaled slowly. 12 devices, small enough to be mounted on support ships scattered strategically throughout the defense line, capable of collapsing the very fabric of space around anything caught within range. It still felt strange to him, the idea that such quiet, unremarkable-looking machines could hold this much power. "Fleet Admiral Whitfield has given the order," Reyes said over the general channel. "All ships hold position. Do not engage until my signal. Let them come to us." The Draask fleet closed the distance faster than expected, clearly expecting to catch the human defense line off guard. Their lead ships opened fire the moment they entered weapons range, plasma bolts streaking across the black void toward the waiting human formation. "Shields holding," Solis reported. "They're engaging at full aggression, sir." Reyes watched the enemy formation tighten as it advanced, ships packing closer together in a display of confidence, of certainty that this battle was already won. "Perfect," Reyes muttered. "Sir?" Solis asked. "They've done exactly what we hoped," Reyes said. "Ibarra, confirmed targeting lock on enemy formation." "Confirmed," Ibarra's voice answered. "All 12 units locked, awaiting your order, Commander." Reyes stared at the screen one final moment, watching hundreds of enemy ships bearing down on Earth, each one filled with soldiers who believed they were about to win an easy victory. He thought briefly of Halden Colony, of the families lost there simply to prove a point nobody asked to be taught. "Deploy the silence," Reyes said. 12 small devices scattered across the human defense line activated simultaneously, each one releasing a controlled pulse of gravitational distortion that expanded outward in near silence. There was no explosion, no flash of destructive light, only a faint shimmer in space, like heat rising off a distant road, spreading rapidly toward the oncoming Draask fleet. The effect was immediate and absolute. Across the entire Draask formation, shields flickered and died within seconds. Weapon systems locked mid-fire, plasma bolts fatting uselessly into empty space. Engines shut down entirely, leaving massive warships drifting helplessly forward on nothing but their previous momentum, completely unable to steer, fire, or defend themselves. On the bridge of the Dauntless, silence fell as every officer stared at the display in disbelief. "All enemy systems reading 0 output," Solis said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sir, their entire fleet just went dark." Reyes watched the tactical display. 300 warships now reduced to helpless drifting hulks scattered across open space, still moving forward under momentum alone, completely defenseless against a human fleet that had not fired a single railgun round. "Hold position," Reyes ordered. "No offensive action. Repeat, no offensive action. Let them drift." Confusion spread quickly through the remaining functional Draask communication channels, panicked messages broadcasting across open frequencies as commanders realized their entire invasion force had been rendered powerless in an instant, without a single ship destroyed. Reyes opened a channel to the drifting Draask flagship, his voice steady despite the historic weight of the moment. "This is Fleet Commander Daniel Reyes of Earth's Defense Forces," he said. "Your fleet is disabled, not destroyed. No lives have been lost today. Return to your territory once your systems restore, and do not test this system again." There was a long pause before a response crackled through, the Draask commander's voice tight with barely controlled anger and something else beneath it, something Reyes recognized immediately. "Fear." What have you done to us?" the voice demanded. Reyes did not answer immediately. He looked out at the drifting fleet, hundreds of ships completely stripped of their power, their pride, their ability to threaten anyone at all without a single life lost in the process. "We ended the fight," Reyes finally said, "before it had to become a massacre." Across the galaxy, sensors belonging to a dozen different species had already detected the strange gravitational readings from Earth's system, readings unlike anything recorded in conquered history. Within hours, the footage and data would spread through diplomatic channels, reaching every corner of known space. Humanity had once been feared for their railguns. Now they were about to become something far more unsettling entirely. The conquered council chamber had not been this full in over a century. Representatives from every major species crowded the circular hall, their voices overlapping in a dozen different languages before translation devices smoothed them into a single confusing wave of sound. At the center of the chamber, a massive display replayed the footage from Earth's system again and again, showing 300 Draask warships going dark within seconds, drifting helplessly without a single shot fired in return. Ambassador Solon stood near the front of the chamber, watching the recording with an expression she could not fully hide, somewhere between awe and quiet dread. "This is not warfare," said a Korvath representative, his voice hissing sharply through his translator. "This is erasure. They did not defeat an enemy. They removed the enemy's ability to exist as a threat entirely." "They also did not kill anyone," Solon said. "No lives were lost in that battle. Compare that to what happened at Halden Colony weeks ago." "That is precisely what troubles me," said another representative, a tall insectoid being from a species known as the Threll. "A weapon that kills creates fear through loss. This creates fear through helplessness. It tells every species in this galaxy that humanity can end any conflict on their terms alone, whenever they choose." The chamber erupted into overlapping arguments again, voices rising, old alliances shifting uneasily as species reconsidered where they stood in relation to this new, unpredictable power sitting at the edge of conquered space. Solon raised a hand, and slowly, out of respect built over years of careful diplomacy, the chamber quieted. "I have spoken with Commander Reyes personally," she said. "I intend to speak with him again directly before this council decides anything permanent. We owe ourselves that much caution, given what is at stake." Her request was granted, though not without resistance from several representatives who wanted immediate action, sanctions, even discussion of preemptive military response. Solon ignored the pressure and arranged a private meeting aboard a neutral space station positioned between conquered and human territory. Reyes arrived alone, without escort, a decision that surprised even his own advisors. He met Solon in a quiet observation room overlooking open space, stars scattered endlessly beyond the reinforced glass. "You came without security," Solon said, studying him carefully. "Would security have made a difference?" Reyes asked, "if the Conquered truly wanted to remove me?" Solon allowed a small, tired smile. "No, I suppose it would not." They stood in silence for a moment, watching distant stars. "I need to understand something, Commander," Solon said finally. "And I need an honest answer, not a diplomatic one." "Ask," Reyes said. "Will humanity use this weapon to conquer?" she asked directly. "Not defend, not deter, conquer. Will you use the silence to expand your territory, to force weaker species into submission, simply because you now hold the power to do so?" Reyes considered the question carefully before answering. He thought of Halden colony, of drifting Draask ships, of the fear he had heard in that enemy commander's voice. "No," he said finally, "and I understand why you doubt that answer. Every species that gains overwhelming power eventually tells itself the same story, that this time will be different, that they alone can be trusted with it." "Then why should I believe you?" Solon asked. "Because I'm not asking you to simply believe me," Reyes said. "I'm offering something better, proof." He explained the plan carefully. Humanity would adopt a strict doctrine limiting the silence to defensive use only, formally written into their own laws and shared openly with the Conquered Council. More than that, Earth scientists would share limited technical details, enough for Conquered engineers to understand the weapon's basic function and develop countermeasures over time, ensuring humanity could never hold the technology as an unchallenged, unstoppable advantage forever. "You would willingly weaken your own advantage?" Solon asked, clearly surprised. "An advantage nobody can ever counter isn't safety," Reyes said. "It's just power waiting to be abused either by us or by whoever eventually steals the secret from us. Sharing it, carefully on our terms, protects everyone, including humanity itself." Solon studied him for a long moment, searching his expression for any sign of deception, finding none she could clearly identify. "I will bring this proposal to the council," she said. "I cannot promise they will accept it easily. Fear does not listen to logic quickly, Commander, even when the logic is sound." "I know," Reyes said, "but it's a start." The proposal did reach the council, sparking days of heated debate across every species represented. Many accepted it cautiously, relieved that humanity was choosing transparency over silent dominance. Others remained deeply suspicious, unwilling to trust a species so young, so unpredictable with any amount of restraint at all. Among those who remained unconvinced was a small, secretive faction within the council itself, made up of representatives from several species who believed the only safe path forward was to seize control of the silence technology directly, by force if necessary, before humanity could grow too powerful to stop. Their planning began quietly, hidden beneath official diplomatic channels, unnoticed by Solon, unnoticed by Reyes, unnoticed by anyone who might have warned Earth in time. Somewhere deep within conquered space, ships began moving in the dark, preparing for a mission that would test humanity's restraint far sooner than anyone expected. Alarms rarely sounded at the research facility hidden beneath the mountain, which was exactly why the sound of them at 3 in the morning brought every technician sprinting from their bunks. Dr. Rosa Ibarra reached the main control room within minutes, still pulling on her jacket, her eyes scanning the emergency display for answers. "Talk to me," she said. "What triggered the alert?" "Unidentified vessels detected entering the outer perimeter," a technician answered quickly. "Stealth configuration, non-human design. They bypassed 3 layers of orbital detection before our ground sensors picked them up." Ibarra's stomach tightened. "How many?" 4 ships, small, fast, clearly built for infiltration, not combat." She activated a secure channel immediately, contacting Fleet Commander Daniel Reyes, who answered within seconds despite the hour. "We have a problem," she said. Someone's trying to reach the facility. Reyes was already moving before she finished speaking, pulling up tactical data from his private terminal aboard the Dauntless. Do we know who? Not yet, Ibora said. But given the timing, right after the council debate over sharing our technology, I don't think this is a coincidence. Reyes had suspected something like this might happen eventually. Not every species trusted diplomacy to solve every problem, and the silence represented too much power for some factions within the conquered to simply wait patiently for humanity to share it willingly. If they could not have it through cooperation, someone clearly intended to take it by force. Fortunately, Reyes and Ibora had prepared for exactly this possibility. Activate Defense Protocol 7, Reyes ordered. Let them get close. Don't destroy them. I want this handled quietly, and I want them stopped without unnecessary bloodshed. The 4 infiltration ships descended toward the mountain facility under heavy stealth systems, confident they remained undetected as they approached a secondary entrance believed to be lightly guarded. What they did not know was that Ibora's team had installed a miniature version of the silence technology specifically around the facility's perimeter, designed for exactly this kind of scenario. The moment the ships crossed the outer boundary, the system activated instantly. Onboard the intruding vessels, every system failed within seconds. Shields collapsed, weapons locked, engines died completely, leaving all 4 ships drifting uselessly just outside the facility's outer wall, completely disabled without a single shot fired from either side. Human security teams moved in swiftly, securing the disabled vessels and the shocked, unarmed crews inside, who offered no resistance given their ships were now nothing more than empty metal shells floating in the dark. When the identities of the crews were confirmed hours later, the truth sent shockwaves through the conquered council. The infiltration team belonged to a hardline faction made up of representatives from 3 different species, acting entirely outside official council authority, attempting to steal silence technology through direct theft rather than wait for the slower, more transparent process Reyes had proposed. Ambassador Solon received the report early the next morning, her expression hardening as she read through the details. She had feared something like this might happen, had quietly worried that not everyone shared her willingness to give humanity's proposal a genuine chance. She requested an emergency council session immediately, standing before the full chamber with the evidence displayed clearly for everyone to see. This faction acted without council approval, Solon said, her voice sharp with barely restrained anger. They attempted to steal a weapon through force, exactly the kind of reckless aggression this council has spent centuries trying to prevent among our own species. And how did humanity respond? She activated the footage from the incident, showing the disabled Draask ships, no wait, corrected herself internally, showing the disabled infiltration ships drifting harmlessly, their crews captured alive and unharmed. They disabled the threat, Solon continued, without killing a single person exactly as promised. They had every justification to destroy those ships completely. Instead, they chose restraint, even against those who tried to betray them. The chamber fell into uneasy silence, many representatives visibly reconsidering their earlier doubts. The hardline faction's reckless attempt had backfired completely, exposing their own willingness to break council law while simultaneously proving humanity's claims about restraint were more than empty diplomatic promises. In the following weeks, the extremist faction was formally condemned and stripped of their council positions, while humanity's proposal for shared oversight of silence technology moved forward with far less resistance than before. Not every species fully trusted humanity yet, and Reyes knew that trust built after centuries of careful tradition could not be earned overnight. But something fundamental had shifted in how the galaxy viewed Earth and its people. Reyes stood before the full conquered council months later, invited formally for the first time since humanity's arrival among the stars. The chamber was quieter than usual, representatives watching him with a mixture of curiosity and cautious respect. "Many of you feared our railguns," Reyes said, his voice steady across the massive hall. "You believed they made us dangerous, unpredictable, a threat to the balance you've maintained for centuries. You were not entirely wrong, but we did not build the silence to conquer this galaxy or to prove our strength through fear." He paused, looking across the gathered representatives of a dozen different species, all listening closely. "We built it," Reyes continued, "so that no one, including ourselves, would ever again mistake war for a simple game with easy answers. Power without restraint is just another kind of danger. We understand that now. We intend to prove it, one choice at a time." As Reyes left the chamber that day, Solon walked beside him quietly, her expression unreadable but calmer than it had been in months. "You surprised us, Commander," she said. "Not with your weapon, with your restraint." "Let's hope it stays that way," Reyes replied. Far beyond the edges of conquered territory, in a region of space no human or conquered sensor had ever fully mapped, something ancient and unknown quietly took notice of the strange gravitational disturbance recorded near a small, unremarkable world called Earth. It had been a very long time since anything had caught its attention. Now it was watching closely,